Thanks.
Yes. So, good morning, everybody. My name is Amudhan. I'm a documentary filmmaker based in Chennai. I'm part of a group called Marupakkam. We do this online film screening. We have been doing this online film screening since April since that lockdown was started. And this week we are showing Aditya Seth's film, and I know Aditya for almost 20 years. And I remember meeting him in 2006 at Mumbai Festival. And first, I was little. First time I was showing my film Ship. First time I had been to a big festival to show my film. And Aditya suddenly came and talked to me. He was very pleasant and very friendly. I was like little worried about Mumbai, and Aditya came to me by himself, and he spoke to me, and I was so pleased. Since then, we have been friends. Whenever I go to Bangalore, whenever we get a chance, we just meet and share a drink and share stories and everything. So it's been a nice journey between Aditya and Mudan. Thank you very much, Aditya,
Thank you so
and
much.
thank you, Vijay Santi. Thank you, Vijay Santi, for joining. Yes, yes. So to start with, I'll ask few questions. Maybe you can respond. Then I'll ask Vijay Santi to
Please.
continue. To start with, I'll just ask you, like, what kind of a filmmaker you are? Like, how did you decide to become a filmmaker? Number one, and what actually drives you to make documentary films? Like the stories, the ideas, the focus area. What are the things that motivate you?
Yeah. Thanks, Amudhan. Thanks for the opportunity, and thanks for all the opportunities you've given me over the years. It's been a great association, great friendship, and it's always a pleasure to interact with you. Coming to your fundamental question, why did I become a documentary filmmaker? Because I think I always found fact more interesting, more challenging than fiction. Although my fundamental training was in theatre, I used to do a lot of theatre. I was a musician in college. I used to play the drums. We had a rock band. I was a percussionist. I was studying literature. So all of these things kind of zeroed in on one thing that I wanted to make films. But I always wanted to make non-fiction. I was not very driven by fiction, although that was where my training really was to start with. And then I got an opportunity to assist Prakash Jha, who is my guru. I assisted him for 2 years. That's where I learned the craft of filmmaking, both fiction as well as non-fiction. But documentary has always been something which I've always gone to. Not that I've not made fiction, I've made TV serials, I've done ad films, I've done all kinds of work across platforms. Uh, but it's always been the documentary which has fascinated me. Now, why has documentary fascinated me is, and the type of subjects I choose or the type of films I make, basically is I like to talk about things which nobody talks about. I like to demystify issues which or phenomena in society which are hidden, which I feel need to be spoken about, need to be put out there, need to be demystified, need to be communicated. There is no pattern to this. There is no agenda behind this. It's purely an emotional response that I have to start with, which eventually obviously has to turn into an intellectual response because you have to make a film. You can't make a film purely based on emotional drive. But it's always like that. It's always that the subject drives me, the subject moves me. I feel that yes, this is something I want to talk about. And then the process starts. So either I fund it myself like all of us do, or I seek funding, whichever. This particular film that you've been watching has been funded by Films Division. It was more or less a democratic process, but yes, it had its ups and downs. So the reason I've been wanting to make this film for I don't know how many years. I originally researched on the Khasi community and on Meghalaya in I think way back, nearly 20 years ago. But unfortunately, I didn't get the kind of support and funding that I wanted to make the film on, and I did not have my own money those days. So then, when I finally got an opportunity by Films Division, when Mr. Kundu was Director General, and we were all asked to come and pitch projects. So I pitched my project, and thankfully it got approved. And the reason I wanted to make this film right from the very beginning was this is the only place in India where a girl child is welcome. Otherwise, everybody is going nuts trying to give birth to boys, and when a boy is not born, the female unnecessarily, receive flack, and there's a lot of unrest in the family, and there's a lot of unnecessary tragedy and rubbish around the whole system. Uh, where most people don't even realize that the gender of the child is dependent on the man and not on the woman. But the woman faces flack for some reason that she's not given birth to a boy. So I found Meghalaya quite fascinating. Is that where a place where the girl child is worshipped, the girl child is welcome, the girl child is the center of everything. So that was primarily that one underlying tenet of that society is what really drove me to make this film. And as I was making it, I realized that there's a lot of unrest, a lot of sexual politics around the whole thing, a lot of gender issues, a lot of male female discord because of matrimony. So that I really explored that in my film. Is a dynamic of matrimony today in contemporary context in contemporary society. Yeah, I
Mm.
hope I've answered your question. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah, yes, yes.
thanks.
No, I remember your other film about Bahadur
Yeah,
film, Nepali men being working in India, different parts of India. Even there, you were. Remembered having a discussion with you in Chennai when you were here. I was asking you, how do you justify yourself as a filmmaker when you see there are many ways of looking at a distant community. Some people make an ethnographic type of film where they celebrate their cultural practices and record their cultural practices. Or some people make quote unquote issue based films where they talk about the problems the community faces, and they take their side and make a film. It can be a political issue or social issue or or a regional issue, linguistic issue, or some theater artist. Where again, you become a poetic kind of filmmaker. But you have in the two films, you have your own style in which you don't have a loyalty to the community. You're actually critically analyzing the community. Like even the earlier film also with Nepali men, although you are not showing any loyalty, you are critically evaluating and trying, so sometimes I remember having a David discussion with you saying that how do we locate to yourself. There's a thing called locus standi, isn't it? When you go to a distant community and make a film about them, and when you critically analyze them, how do you justify yourself as an outsider when you evaluate their cultural practices, you know how do you, like, for example, what actually happens when you're deciding to do that? How did you do that? That's what I want to ask,
no,
if
very,
I'm
very, very
clear.
good question. Uh, the one fundamental you need to understand is there's a difference between critical analysis and value judgment. I'm not passing value judgment at all. I'm being as objective as I possibly can be, but I'm distant. I don't get personal in any of my filmmaking, or I don't get personally involved with any of my subjects. I always keep a safe distance, because if I don't have a safe distance, I cannot objectively analyze. And that is the school of filmmaking I come from. I've always been taught to be a fence sitter. I've always been taught to be distant. I've always been taught not to get involved with the cause of the film, but the film in itself is the cause. So that is the way I make my films. How do I justify this? I justify this because I am basically trying to not just demystify the phenomenon for an audience, but also for the community itself. It's showing a mirror to them also, that look, this is what you're missing out on. This is where your issues lie. If you're willing to recognize it, take cognizance of it, and reflect on it, it may benefit you at some level. So maybe my process is both within and without. It's both overt and covert. Is that I'm trying to build a dialogue or a conversation between the community and an audience. So I'm the catalyst. I'm on neither side. I'm neither the audience nor am I the community. I'm simply a catalyst who's saying, look, this is what you're all about. These are your issues. This is your audience. Talk to each other. Figure out if you can solve things for yourself. I'm not providing any solutions, but I'm being absolutely critical to the bone, like you say. Yes, I mean, I have no love lost for anybody, but at the same time, there is most definitely a compassion for the community. I don't put them down, but at the same time, I strip them bare as far as possible. So that is, I guess, there has always been a need in me to analyze things because somewhere I'm also learning myself, right? Every film you make, you learn. So no filmmaker can say, I know everything about a subject before you start making it. I mean that is being seriously uh, myopic at some level. Because like I'll give you the example of Bahadur, for instance. I started making Bahadur in 2008. I started shooting it, and it premiered in 2011. And as I went through the 3 years of making that film, I realized I started making a social health film. It turned out to be a socio-political film. I did not realize that when I started making it. So as you go along, you learn new things, you gather new material, and then you realize, okay, so this is not it. This is only the surface. There's so much more to it.
Mm.
As you go deeper, as you demystify it further, I think you get more distant and you get a better objectivity about the subject. And the more distant you get, the more critical the film becomes. So that's my process. I don't know if you agree or you disagree, but that's
No, no,
really
no.
one of the
It's not a question of agreeing this. I'm
yeah,
trying to understand because
yeah,
you also need courage to make films like such films.
yeah,
Because
yeah,
I'm just, as I told you in the beginning, filmmakers also have some they also try to draw a line so that they don't cross. They say that okay, this is what I should do. I should not do these things. They just restrict themselves. So I'm just thinking this is very kind of it also has a television touch in it, the way you are making a film for many reasons. One of them is the way you cut the film. It's very fast. They
mm,
remember the beginning of the film,
mm,
like within a minute you have say 15, 20 shots.
yeah,
She comes out of the airport and
yeah,
there are so many shots.
yeah,
It's very quick. And
yeah.
there's a sequence about Sirapunji, beginning of showing Sirapunji. There's so many shots. It's more of there's a television touch in it.
Yes, because I have done so much of work in television. So I guess somewhere it influences my style to a large extent. I myself get visually bored very quickly. So I try and intercut a lot.
Yeah.
Also, I was an editor, so I guess somewhere I'm itching to cut more and to show more and package as much as possible.
Yes,
Because the
yes.
other thing I've realized is that the maximum attention span on any subject can be an hour. That's it. After that, people get so bored that they just want to go home. So one has to package a lot in that time. So you make it visually as dramatic and as
थोड़े
dynamic as possible.
थोड़े दांत और फाड़ अच्छे से फाड़ दांत
Sorry? Okay. So, yes, you're absolutely right. There is an element of television, but it is not deliberately done so. It is done more just to make the film visually interesting.
Uh,
That's my only real purpose behind visually packaging.
सच कह रहा है
I understand.
दीवाना दिल
Yeah.
न किसी से लगा
But somebody has just wants
sorry
to
sir
play
sorry
with
sorry
us.
sir
I'll
mic on
remove
sir
them. I'll remove them. Yeah. I'll remove them. Sometimes you get suddenly some interesting people joining the group
Yes.
and they just want to come and play with us.
And they sing well also.
Yeah. So we'll give them the opportunity. So that's the problem of allowing people allowing unknown people, but still we have to take the chance. So
I know.
uh,
Always.
yes. So
Always.
let them come and
my giving you the film to screen itself is a chance because at the end of the day, it's owned by Films Division, not by me.
yeah. So let people
But
come
it's been
and
4
sing
years
the
since the
song.
film was made, so I said it doesn't matter, let it go online.
Yeah.
You know.
So I was asking. So there's a also. I talked about the television touch, not only in the fast cutting or one sec. Ayush is making noise.
Yeah.
It's Ayush only. I could see. So I think I will not allow people no more. So let us continue.
सर बवासीर की दवाई है क्या? बवासीर की मेरे गले में बवासीर हो गया। बैंचोद पानी नहीं पिया जाता।
What?
किसका ने दिया
पानी
था?
नहीं पिया जाता सर, पानी नहीं पिया जाता, बवासीर हो गई गले में।
Baba zero week.
3 दिन से टट्टी नहीं गया।
What?
This will happen. So I removed everybody.
This is so strange, right? All of a sudden. So this I've not seen any time.
Yeah, it is happening off late. They just because if you circulate the invite nationally, you get national audience joining. It is happening. It's been happening for some time. So we have to be watchful, and we should not get dejected. We just have to quickly remove them. I removed them. I know. I'm quite experienced in well versed in it. Anyway, it's okay. I think I've removed them. In terms of television touch, it's not just a fast cutting. It is also your the stance you took. I told you your critical analysis or objective way of looking at things. So it is also has the television touch in it. So it's very unique, and you also you have to be brave to do that. That's what I want to point out.
I guess so. I've never. I've got good reviews, but I've never necessarily been accoladed much by the communities I made the film for. They've all been like little, skeptical. Who are you? Like when I premiered in Kathmandu, I got very good press and very bad press, and some of the bad press, like they ripped me apart. How dare this Indian come and make a film about us and show us in a bad light?
This is about Bahadur film.
Sorry?
This is about Bahadur film.
This is about the Bahadur film. And then when I screened this Adi Betorov in Shillong, they liked the film. They were very happy, very grateful that somebody from the mainland. They call us mainland, right? They are kind of the Seven Sisters are sort of segregated. So we are mainland India. They're not mainland India in their perception. They said like very kind of you to come and make a film all about us and bother about us. We're such a small community. But you could have been a little kinder. You could have been more positive. I said, well, I only showed what I saw. I did not invent any of this. It's all there in front of me. Maybe you also need to take a look at it. Maybe you need to take cognizance of the fact that there are problems in your society. So that is coming back to the same thing, right? Being critical. Yes, brave is one thing. But the other thing is, if I wasn't critical, I wouldn't be honest to myself. Then my film would not make any sense to me. Forget the audience. Audience comes later. It really starts there. I have to be critical and I have to be objective. I don't like to take sides. At the same time, I'm not necessarily eulogizing anyone.
I understand. No, I understand. Basically, I'm spending a lot of time on this topic only because it's actually a very it's a very very important point I want to discuss with you. That's I always want to discuss with you because many filmmakers always take a side. Many filmmakers always use soft glove, they just go slightly softer, and especially about a community. If you're critical about an authority, if you're critical about an establishment, then they are very forceful. They're very, they're very open and unambiguous.
Or even an individual. If you're essentializing an individual, it is still acceptable. Yeah.
But this the kind of style you create, and I'm discussing it with you only because it's you have done it in 2 films which I've watched. I mean, I'm not watched other films, but at least 2 films there's a continuity in the 2 films, and it's very clear also. It's not that it's very subtle or it's very hidden. It's very bold and it's in the face. It's coming out very clearly in the both films. That's why I'm curious. I'm discussing about that.
Right. Yeah.
Number 1. Number 2. I think I'll just ask Vijayashanti to continue. Maybe then I can join. I can ask later.
Please, in the meantime, you can check on the people who are joining in. I mean, just maybe
No, I've
something will be
tested.
interesting to have.
No, I've tested, but I already removed 5 people. So I don't know the many of them. So it's very. I've allowed one person, Ramdas Karvalur, the filmmaker,
Okay.
who joins regularly. So I've included him. Other people I do not know. It's very unknown people, so I don't want to take the risk.
All right.
So,
Fair enough.
Vijayashanti, please go ahead.
Yes, sir. Yeah. So one of the things that I wrote down first was the question that Amudhan sir asked. When you critique a community, there's a lot of questions that come in, and it is at times traumatic to also answer. Let me, also tell what I meant by traumatic. For example, you're not just an outsider as a community person, but in terms of gender also, you are taking it with a certain lens. For example, let's say feminists watch this film, right? Me being a feminist, and now I've grown as a person. Now I stand at a position where I understand what you're trying to say, and there is no disagreement at all. But if the same film was, if at all I had watched it, let's say 2 years ago, I would have felt, yeah, this person wants to debunk matrilineality. This person supports the institution of marriage, and that's why he's mulling over divorce constantly here, talking about taking responsibility as a man. But this is not what actually you're doing. You're doing what has to be done, being critical about even something that comes from matrilineality, right? But as a person, I have grown and I will still grow. So have there been moments where people have questioned this stance of yours, and how do you understand or respond to them? There's a second question. As a filmmaker, I see that you've chosen people from different backgrounds. One an IAS officer, another a psychiatrist, and another person who's deeply rooted in tradition, another person who's a student. So how did you choose these people? And also their views are juxtaposing each other's views at times. This is also something that I was curious about. How did you choose them while you were scripting? Are you a filmmaker? So this is something that Amudhan sir was saying. There are some people who script first and then shoot. There are some people who shoot and then on the table film happens. What kind of a filmmaker are you in that sense? Or do you do both in some ways? Because I'm curious. I see that there is both that is happening in your film. So I'll stop here, and then maybe after others. Yeah, thank you.
Okay, great. Thanks. I'll first answer your second question, then I'll go to the first one after that. Yeah. When you say what kind of filmmaker are you, how did you choose all these people? The kind of filmmaker I am is I'm a very spontaneous, thinking on my feet kind of filmmaker. And the reason I choose people from different walks of life, different careers, different professions, is because I always try and interact with the cross section of society whenever I'm making a film on a community, so that nobody feels that they haven't been given a voice. So as far as possible, I look at all the various socioeconomic, sociopolitical representatives of that particular space, of that community, as far as possible. People who have some, not necessarily authority, but who have some respect in that society. So when they say something, the people in that community will listen to them. More than my listening to them, or more than my wanting to necessarily influence the process of what I'm documenting. I think it's as important that the people who the film is being made about feel comfortable with what they're seeing, feel comfortable and feel that it's a credible representation of their lives. A credible representation of their lives will only come when the story, and this is what I always try and see, it is storytelling at the end of the day, whether it's fiction or it's non-fiction. We're all in the business of storytelling and of selling ideas. So I believe good storytelling has to be organic. It has to come from within the community. You cannot put it from the outside and say, oh, this is what it's going to be. Like the classical voice of God voiceover that film division documentary used to have at one time, where everything was like a guided tour and nobody was given a voice to speak. So you never really heard about the people who are being heard from the people who are being documented, rather heard of them from a third voice, from a third person, third party. So the reason I pick and choose various people is because I feel that they represent different uh, phenomena, or different dimensions of the phenomena that I'm trying to document. And yes, to a certain extent, these are predetermined by me. So if you ask me, do I pre-script my film? I think I pre-scripted a lot of my film for films division because the producers needed some sort of a script before they gave me the film to make. So a lot of it was based on my research and my reading and my interaction with the community at some level. I had a great subject expert and line producer. She's from Cherrapunji, Hulda Kinta. So she was a great help in giving me inputs and making me understand about the community, about the society without me even visiting there once. And then only after, so I had to put some sort of script together for film division. So yes, I did do some scripting for them. But again, if you ask me, and I've always believed this, that I believe documentaries are made on the editing table. You don't make documentaries while you're shooting. While you're shooting, you're only collecting material. You're just putting things together. Like for instance, for a 1 hour film, I usually shoot 60 hours. So if you've seen, say, 10 to 15 to 20 representatives of the Khasi community in my film, there must be some 30, 40 people who don't figure, who are not there. Simply because I felt that I feel that I always try and pick up the best bites and the most articulate people as far as possible. So the people you see are the people who are the most articulate, are the people who made the most sense and who kind of substantiated what I was trying to say, as I discovered as I went along. So I shot this film over two schedules. First was in October, which was a recce as well as a minor shoot just to get a feel of the space. And then December, Jan, I was there for a long time. And that's when I really got into the meat of the film, the nitty-gritties and meeting people and shooting with various people. So I guess what you see on the table is, like I said, after a lot of cutting, a lot of sieving, a lot of cleaning up, so to speak, and try and picking up the best possible bites, best possible information, which substantiated what I discovered as I was making the film and my research. So I hope I've answered the first part of the question. The second question. The first question, when you talk about feminism and feminist perception of things, look, there is no agenda to willfully hurt anybody's sensibilities. That is not the purpose of the film. The agenda really is to make you reflect on a particular society or a particular community from a demystified perspective. I'd like to believe that I've demystified the community as I've made my film through my film. Now, it may hurt your sensibilities, it may not hurt your sensibilities, but it will definitely give you food for thought. You will definitely be forced to think. You will definitely be forced to engage with the subject at some level and the people in the film at some level. Whether from a feminist perspective or a non-feminist perspective, I don't know. I mean, that really was not something which was at the top of my mind when I was making the film. But I definitely knew that I wanted to make the film uh, uh, to showcase that at some level, not completely, but at some level, uh, the so-called independence or the so-called freedom that the women in matrilineal society face is nothing but a euphemism for their exploitation. It's not that they don't have it good. I mean, there are both sides of the spectrum. There's a lot of good which happens for them also, but then there's a lot of exploitation also that happens with them. Because at the end of the day, they're left taking care of home, hearth, and the children, and the men just come and go. And that's a fact. That is how it is even today. It's not changed irrespective of we being in the 20th century and going beyond 21st century. it's as bad. It's probably getting worse, which is the reason why there is a lot of noise for patrilineal. People feel that the men are getting completely marginalized, which somewhere is also the men's fault. It's not necessarily only the woman's fault. So I did not have a feminist agenda. My agenda was really to try and make the world understand what is matrilineal all about in Meghalaya, especially in the Khasi community, and how do they themselves live with their own dynamic in their own inherent complexities and differences and dialectics. Yeah, that's really. I think I hope I've answered your question.
Yes, that was really a nice answer. I'm still struggling to articulate this when I discuss with my friends. For example, there are women who choose to not work outside home, right? Their argument is similar to what you are saying. They would say, I work outside. Again, I'm working inside too at home. And I don't want to take that burden. I would choose rather to do this. Yes, it has its own problems, but I would choose this. And there is no space for a discussion of this kind. Either they are bracketed as, oh yeah, you're succumbing to the age old patriarchal views and things like that. But there is also a point of view that is coming from there. I think your film is actually doing that to unravel these. So when I was teaching gender studies paper, something that I would do every time to quote is talk about Khasi community and also matrilineal communities from Kerala. But only
If I
I
may
could only
interrupt
look.
you, if I may
Yeah,
interrupt
yeah.
you, matrilineal communities in Kerala are far more empowered than the women in Meghalaya.
Mm.
Yeah.
Mm, mm, mm. Okay. Oh, I'm curious to know more about it. I would bracket both in one category. But now I think I have a different perspective and something to take to class. And yeah, thank you so much for that. Yes, I would like to watch the other film that you both are referring to. Is it
Please.
available on YouTube by any chance?
It's available on Docubay. It's available on Movie. It's available on Indieview.
Okay.
It's called Bahadur the Accidental Brave. If you
Okay.
do
Okay.
Google search, you should get it. It's
Okay.
available, and these are all free platforms. You just have to register yourself. You can watch the film. No
Mm,
problem.
okay. Okay.
Yeah.
After Ramdas sir, I'll ask next question. Yeah.
Yeah. No, just one addition to what you're saying. I think feminism itself is such a complex subject, right? And it's evolved so much with time, and there are so many different, uh, if I may use the word, practices of feminism today. I'm sorry, I know it's not a politically correct word,
No, you're absolutely right. Yeah.
but
Yeah. Yeah.
there are so many practices of
Mm,
feminism today that I don't think one definition fits all. I think
yes.
everybody has their own approach to it. Everybody has their own way of looking at it. I think the only thing that could be looked upon as a common thread running through all feminism is the need to be activists, or is the need to live an activistic approach to life, whether you're being an activist or not. Uh, so, somewhere by default, uh, I think, you may correct me if you think I'm wrong, since you're an expert, I'm not really an expert, is I think the women in matrilineal societies are by default feminists. Whether they want to be or not is a completely different issue. But they are
Yeah.
practicing living examples of feminism and they don't even understand what feminism is.
True. Yeah.
You know?
Yes.
So,
Yes.
feminism is a very complex and a very complicated thing. So I really am not an expert to comment much on it. But I really felt that the women in that state are feminists and they don't have an option but to be feminists. Otherwise, either they will collapse or the family will collapse or the kids will collapse. Something will collapse. You know?
True.
So there, that's what I feel, that's what I felt. And I hope that comes through in my film at some
It
level.
does. It does. It does very much.
Yeah. Thanks. Thank you.
Uh, Thank you, Aditya. Thank you, Jashanti. So that's so. See, this is a very interesting point we're discussing. You know, when you are there's always a question of see the other interesting point about your film is that you're not trying to represent anybody. Like so that's where the question of politics of representation comes. So you're not even representing anybody. So you're not taking that risk of representing, quote unquote, representing anybody.
No,
You know,
I'm not.
I understand Vijay. I hope Vijay Seth understands what I'm talking. So
Yes, yes, sir.
when
Very
we
much.
make a film, when we make a film about a particular community, we always take a stance and we try to represent them. We try to, we try to tell them, their problems to the rest of the world. Try to represent them. That's where the patronizing voice comes, where you don't, you try to completely blanket everything, and you, that is, we have moved on from that way of looking at things. But you have been doing it quite for some time now. You're not a new filmmaker. You have been doing it for the past 20, 30 years on your own in this particular style.
True.
It probably you do. That's what I use the word. Remember in the beginning, I used the word that you don't have the loyalty. You don't believe in having a loyalty to the ideology or a politics or a community. You don't fall into the trap. This is very actually helping you in that sense. As a
Yeah.
filmmaker, many of us actually have some certain ideological inclination, and we try to. That's where we sometimes, like when I look at my own films, I've always, been this. My ideological loyalty becomes my priority,
Right.
and I'm not apologetic about it. I'm just saying. I'm just saying that's where one makes films from that point of view only. Only recently I've made films slightly moving away, but even then there's always an empathy. There's always some kind of a soft corner. There. Anyway, so can we invite Ramdas Kadavallu Ramdas?
Please.
Hi, Comrade. Yeah.
Ramdas, a
I'm
filmmaker from Kerala, and he has made a wonderful film called Mannu, about tea estate workers in Kerala.
Oh,
So
wonderful.
just a new film, nice film. So Ramdas, you go ahead. Your comments,
yeah,
questions.
yeah. I mean, I'm sorry that I didn't completed the film. I started watching, so I'm not able to comment anything. I like the film, the approach, everything, but only thing I was not able to finish the film because of the
I think there's a connectivity issue. I can't hear you, sir.
Hello, am
Yeah.
I audible?
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Sorry, you got disconnected in the middle.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, so what I'm telling, I didn't finish the film, so I wanted to watch it again, but it's a very wonderful approach. It's a very interesting film, so that's why I joined the discussion. So able to comment only after watching it again. So it's a very wonderful film. I mean, I just started watching.
Thank you. So kind of you. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. I think Vijay Shanti had one more question, so I think that would be nice if we can
Yes.
continue the discussion. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thanks.
More than a question, it's a comment. So what I also liked is talking about the class difference within clans. Mostly when we discuss about owning land, we again categorize, like there is some sort of a glorification that happens at the end of the day. Be it in again, like I'm going back to Kerala and Khasi community, because the land owning becomes an important ingredient. So it was interesting to see how one woman was saying money is not so important because in our culture we don't think money is important, culture is important and things like that, and we are a happy go jolly sort of people. This scene is before the scene where the laborer, the woman who is working as a domestic help, and then I think another physical labor woman. So this comes just after that, right? I think I liked these elements of talking about class from multiple perspectives. Again, I think multiple perspectives is something that's happening throughout the film, right? Throughout the film. Another interesting thing is also, I think that you answered when you spoke about your school days. I think I'm going to just off my video because there is some internet issue. Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah. So you've used their own music as the background music, and also their dance and things like that. So what sort of a research did you do, and how was it working with the sound artist. Is that what they're called as? I'm not sure of the terminology.
The
So if you could
musician.
talk about the sound and how you shot those, yeah, yeah. So
No, great. Very good question. Uh, Let me just comment on the first thing you said. Yes, the idea really was, I think I did answer this partially in the beginning. Whenever I make a feature length film, I don't like to go beyond an hour because I've realized, and me myself as an audience, I don't have patience to sit through a film beyond 45 minutes to 60 minutes max. I get distracted, I get bored, I lose attention. So therefore, this is after many years of both making as well as screening films and watching films. I realized that 1 hour is just the right length for any serious engagement with a documentary. And I've kind of stuck to that. I try my best. Not that I've not made longer films, I have, but I try my best to fit everything into an hour. So then the moment you are restricting yourself with duration, you have to multi-layer the film. There's no other way to do it. It has to be very layered. Otherwise, if you're going to justify each and everything separately as a separate sequence, it will become a 3-hour film. So the reason you see this kind of juxtapositioning is to layer it with simultaneously trying to depict and showcase the different layers of society as I go along. That was my that's my logic in structuring. That's basically what I try and follow. Is that as far as possible, keep all the various layers out there in your face, very direct, and nothing hidden. Nothing hidden. No, strip it, like I say, strip it bare. Make it as visually stark as possible. So, which is the reason that style of filmmaking becomes imperative, because I always restrict myself to a certain duration, and I do that deliberately, being an audience first and a filmmaker later. That was the first part of what was the second thing? I'm sorry. Can you just repeat quickly? Sorry, Vijay Shanti. I think I lost track of the second question. Are you there?
yes, I am.
Yeah, sorry. Can you just repeat the second question?
It was about the music part,
Yeah,
how
right. Okay.
you
Right. Yeah.
composed. Yeah.
Thanks. Yeah. I think the music part really, I always felt that one should always, to make a film as organic and as real as possible, always use live performance, live musicians, and people who represent uh, the foundations or the fundamentals of their own musical heritage. I always try and do this in any film I make. I mean, earlier, of course, one used to do the usual thing of getting music composed and using it as background. I don't do that anymore. I think also over the years, filmmaking and styles of filmmaking have evolved, and certain practices have become kind of mandatory in documentary filmmaking today. And I really feel that music that comes from within the community always adds to the both entertainment as well as to the dramatic impact of the film. As far as my picking and choosing them were concerned, I wanted to shoot the Nongkrem festival, which is there in the film, the Shad Nongkrem festival, because the Shad Nongkrem festival is one of their primary festivals, and it is one of the festivals where people from all over the place congregate, and it's an annual event which is looked upon with great eagerness. And plus, it's a festival which is totally with the blessings of their chiefs, and it takes place in the chief's palace. So there was a lot of tradition. There's a lot of tradition and culture and activity in culture around that festival. That festival basically, I found a lot of irony in that festival, and how really matrilineal society or the Kasi matrilineal society is in the present day, because in that festival the women who dance are all virgins, and they are protected by the men in that festival, in the Chardonnay Creme dance. And it's basically a festival which celebrates and which please and with a plea to the goddess to give them bounty in their farming, to have a good crop and to have good rain and so on and so forth. And the funny thing is that all the girls who dance are virgins, and the men dance around them, and they are protected by the men. And funnily enough, when you look at contemporary matrilineal society in Meghalaya today, in Khasi, especially the Khasi communities, the men don't give a damn. The men are unfortunately quite blasé and quite irresponsible. They're not really bothered about what the women are going through. They feel that it's their birthright to be the way they are. So where is the protection? Who's protecting whom? Are they really necessarily protected? So that's the reason I shot that particular dance. It was just to show the contrast of what the heritage was, what the tradition was, and what has it panned out to be today? What has it become today? Do the men feel any responsibility towards the women? No, they don't. It's more the other way around. They wish to be taken care of by the women and not the other way around. So that's the reason I chose that particular festival. Plus, of course, it has its pomp and glory and conventional cultural practices are there in that festival. So that's the reason I chose that festival. And of course, like I said, the music really was all recorded live in the 2-3 performances that I shot, and I used that same music uh, through the film. And fortunately, I got enough variety of pieces which kind of substantiated wherever that I felt the need for music in the film. I hope I've answered your question.
Yes, yes. Thank you. Actually, you gave us a lot more about the community while you were discussing that part. Yeah. Thank you.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Thank you, Jashanti. Thank you,
Thank you,
Aditya.
sir.
Thank you.
Thank you. So now I just before I think we have covered a vast part, many parts of the film, and I would want. I think you touched upon a bit, and while discussing, I would want you to explain a bit how has been the response to the film, this film or your particular this kind of filmmaking style that you have developed on your own. What has been the response so far?
This film got, I mean, it got a good response as far as screenings were concerned. It was fairly positive. I didn't win any awards, if that's what you're asking. It didn't win
No,
me
no,
any
no.
awards.
I didn't mean actually.
It got me a couple of nominations, but wherever I screened the film, especially when I was there, I can only tell you about the response when I was there. A lot of the screenings have happened in my absence in various fora. Also, because Films Division owns the films, so they also have their own distribution and exhibition of films and outreach, which they keep doing, which I'm not necessarily told about or kept in the loop about, and they have the right to do that. So it has been screened in many places. A lot of them I was not part of those screenings, but whenever I was there, I think the response is very positive. I still remember my second screening in NCPA in Mumbai. I was premiering in Mumbai, and I got first was IIC Delhi, and the second was NCPA Mumbai. And in both places, I had Khasi women who were obviously not living in Meghalaya anymore, and they were living in these cities, come up to me and say, "Thank you for making this film, because we ourselves didn't know so many things about matrilineal practices." So I said, wow, I mean, so even the people who come from the community needed to see something like this, which I felt that really was I felt really good. I felt that, yes, I've kind of achieved something when, people who are Khasis themselves and who are matrilineal, especially women, uh, were kind of, it was an eye opener for them. So that was great. I thought that was really good. There have been then I screened this film. That was an interesting experience I had at Tezpur University. There was an international conference on challenges facing the Northeast, and I was invited to screen my film because it was one of the few films made in recent times on any of the states in the Northeast, and especially this is probably the first comprehensive film which was made of matrilineal. I don't think there's anybody else who's made such a comprehensive film matrilineal. And there I got some very interesting responses, especially from academics, sociologists and anthropologists, and those kind of people were there. And it was very mixed. Some of them agreed, some of them disagreed. Some of them felt that I'm projecting the community in a negative light. Some of them felt that I was not objective enough. I said, you can accuse me of anything, but you can't accuse me of not being objective enough. I think I'm as objective as I possibly can be. So that's where it was, and this is what I've seen even when I've seen Bahadur in UK. I'd gone on a university tour in UK. When it comes to academics, and when it comes to academics perceiving documentaries, the entire perception changes. You know, this, and I've seen, and I'm an academic myself, right? So I can somewhere understand why. But an academic perception is to question even the obvious from a different perspective, and they kind of try and change and challenge your own intention of what you were trying to show in that particular sequence at that point in time, and you're forced to think that, oh no, maybe okay, so maybe this is what is coming across, but this was not the intention. Yeah, so that and I've seen in many colleges, many universities, it's always much more exciting to screen it to a student or an academic community than to filmmakers or to a regular filmmaking audience. A regular filmmaking audience is usually positive that, oh, we're glad we saw a film like this because we've learned about something new, or we've engaged with a new subject. But the moment it goes to academics, they twist it around in ways which you can't even imagine, unimaginable. So that has been the fun part of it, which is why I'll come back to the first question you asked me. Why do I pick and choose such subjects? I pick and choose such subjects because people have not seen such subjects. They haven't engaged with such subjects as far as my films are concerned. And that is the reason I get such diverse and very, very interesting opinions and responses to the film. So overall positive. Could have been more, but like I said, after some time, if you're a filmmaker on hire and the producer is somebody else, you really can't do too much beyond a point. So yeah, I think I hope I've answered your question.
Yes. I think we covered mostly the points. So if Ramdas doesn't have anything, or Vijay Shanti doesn't have anything, maybe we can wind up the session. Or if Aditya,
No, sir. Yeah.
Aditya has to say something finally, final comments.
I would only like to say one thing at the end, is that this country of ours is so amazingly diverse and so complex. It's, we can spend 100 lifetimes, we'll still not know everything, or not be able to document everything. And today, Amudhan, people like you and me, there are many of us making films, much more than when we started.
Yeah.
Right? Much more than when we started. Today, I think the community has grown manifold. Tremendous amount of kids out there who are making films, right?
True.
Some are good, some are bad, some are indifferent, but that is fine. But still, I believe that, we must always try and talk about things that give us something to think about. Whether we are making a change or not, whether we're being activistic or not, whether we're being compassionate or not is secondary. I think it's more awareness generation and food for thought is the endeavor. If we can do that only, and if we can lead by example doing that, then maybe we can influence the younger filmmakers to make better films and make more interesting films, which will also not necessarily make them take a personal stance, rather than be objective and try and put something across which can stand the test of time as a document.
Yes. Yeah. Yes. Okay. Thank you very much.
Thanks so much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, sir.
Nice point to wind up. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
One request is that please share on your social media that we were showing the film until tomorrow evening, 6 o'clock.
Wonderful.
Kindly
I do
share.
that. I
Kindly
do.
share.
I will do that.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you, Amar.
Thank you, Vijay.
Thank you. Thank you, sir.
Pleasure.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you so much. Thank you, everyone. Bye-bye.
Ramdas, are you saying
Yeah.
something?
Thank you, Ramdas.